Now, somewhere in the late 1980s, early 90s, some character was evidently taking a pretty generous 5-finger discount around in the garage. What do you remember about that?
Boy, that's amazing. That guy.
Now, was he with your team or
No?
What?
NASCAR called, and Dick Beatty called my brother, and wondered if he was, because he had gone through a couple of the shopping malls in Warner Robins, Georgia, which is 20 miles from Unadilla, and Macon, 30 miles away, and had used credit cards, buying 30 neckties and 9 pair of shoes. I mean, just ridiculous purchases. Cale Yarber's credit card, Jody Ridley, Marvin Reagan's. I had my brother's credit cards,
yeah.
and he was hitting the different racetracks, and they had him on camera at an ATM, and I've got those pictures. They had him on camera, and they wanted to know if we recognized him, and how's he getting in the garage? Could he be one of y'all's team members? And certainly he wasn't, but that guy came up to me and talked to me in Atlanta in November, in a November race in Atlanta, late 80s. And he approaches me saying that he can get me a sponsor. So we go on the trailer, sitting up there in the little lounge and talking, and I believe he can get me a sponsor. He talked good and all, and told me he was from Warner Robins. So after that race, my wallet had been going through. We'd all leave our clothes and all up there. And so I knew of him. I didn't know him. So I tell Dick Beatty that, well, when we go to Daytona in February, Dick Beatty got me to come up to the NASCAR Hall. And they had gotten the department, police department or whatever down there, their investigators was trying to find this guy. And they got me to do one of those sketches. They would do the sketch. They'd lay a mustache up, and I said, no, that ain't right. It's a little bit longer than that. Well, that one, yeah, that looks right. So they put together this composite of that guy, pencil drawing. And they posted it around and said, if anybody sees this guy. Now, we're down there at Daytona, and I look up from my car, and I see him. I see him standing down at the end of the garage, and I told my brother Marvin, I said, Marvin, that's that guy, the guy that they looking for. So he runs up to the NASCAR Hall. We in the ARCA garage. That was a week before. It was ARCA garage. And so he runs up to the NASCAR Hall and tells Dick Beatty, and I don't know, 4 or 5 officials came out the hall. They come down there, and I'm standing over by the car, and I'm watching him, and he sees them coming, and he takes off running. Well, when he takes off running, they get after him. And the last we saw him, he went underneath Bill Venturini's trailer, went down underneath the trailer, and he got away. He got away again. My first cousin chased him in Atlanta that March. We went back to Atlanta. I saw him again. My first cousin got after him. And he went through the old tunnel running and off of Pit Road. And my first cousin got after him. But anyway, they caught that guy a few years later at the Gator Nationals. The Gator Nationals. Before I leave, I want you to get off my phone his name, a picture of him, the newspaper article. There was a guy in his motorhome at the Gator National. And he called his buddy and he said, hey, is anybody supposed to be in your motorhome? There's a guy in there. No? So he went out, and they went in that motorhome and caught him in that motorhome, beat the living fool out of him. This article will tell you that before the policeman could arrest him and haul him off, he had to take him to the hospital to be attended to. They beat him up. And the policeman got him. They ended up tracing him back, went to Warner Robins, Georgia. His wife gave him a suitcase full of credit cards. He had been stealing credit cards at racing events for 2 or 3 years, full of credit cards. And he served time in prison. Wow. I got it on my phone. Before I leave, you get me to show you that guy
Yeah.
I'll find it on my phone and show you the article where they arrested him at the Gator Nationals. And I think he was sentenced to 7 years or something like that. I wonder if he's out of prison. I'd like to talk to him one day. Well, maybe one day I'll find him.
You gonna beat him again?
No, I'd just like to talk to him and reason with him and say, man, what was the deal?
Yeah.
What are you thinking? But
Yeah.
You made your last Cup start or attempt in 1993. You failed to qualify, but at what point did you decide it was time to walk away from racing?
well, I tried to quit for a couple of years. I'd had a couple of injuries, and Beverly, 2 boys that she's trying to raise, and it was hard for me to take the family to the races and all. You had to drive and things like that. So I was trying to quit, and your buddies didn't want you to. Well, Earl Sadler got me to run his car. He wanted to run the Cup race in Atlanta in 92, end of 90, in 92. So I ran it. And I said, Earl, instead of us running the Cup race, why don't we run the Saturday ARCA race? We can win that race in your car. Rump Pittman built the motor. I run 6 races in my career, ARCA, Xfinity, or Busch, and Cup, without a Robert Yates motor. And that was a 6 I run for Earl Sadler with a Rump Pittman motor. Well, anyway, so Earl said, okay, let's go down there and win the ARCA race. It ran on Saturday before Sunday. So went down there, and we thought we won it. Red Farmer spotted for me, and he'll tell you to this day that we won it. Bill Elliott and them had a number 9 Coors car. Gene Roberts, a good friend of mine, even today, crewed it and all out of Elliott's shop. And it come down, Charlie Glotzback in a Childress car kind of dominated that race. And we were running second to Charlie, and he had a transmission problem with 25 laps to go. And came down pit road, well, it put us in the lead. A caution come out inside of 20 to go. And the only car that could even run with us is Elliott's Ford with Greg Trammell in it. So we decided we're not going to pit, and we're just going to stay out, leading the race. We restart the race with about 10 to go. Greg Trammell's in the back. Here he comes through the field, new tires. He just chopping me down. Well, Red Farmer says, don't race him, let him go. He's a lap down. He's short a lap now. He's a lap down. So he goes by me. Now it's 5 to go. And then Red says, hey, we hear something about a protest being filed that they want a lead lap. Can you get back to him? No, I can't get back to him on these old tires. So we come around. The score tower still shows us as a winner. Checkered flag comes out. But the Elliott team has filed a protest up to the tower with a Morris Metcalf. So we both come down pit road, go down the ramp, go down the garage, fill up with fuel, come back down to the inspection lane, which is one of our Legends car workshops today. I'm in it every day of the week in Atlanta. We go across the scales. They pull us out back and hold us right outside my office window in the infield of Atlanta Motor Speedway. We're sitting there waiting, which is my office window now, not back then. But takes 5-10 minutes, and they call Greg to Victory Lane and said we run second. And, I was glad to get second. I'm out of the car ain't got a scratch on it. We run second. But me and Earl, Morris Metcalf, had us come up to the tower. Mr. Sadler, he was a great guy.
Yeah.
Helped a lot of people. And we went up to the tower, and he explained it and all. Well, a funny story is about 6, 8, 10 years later, after that was in 92. After that, Metcalf had retired. I'm down in Atlanta doing a Legends program. He's down there with Coca-Cola making an appearance. And so after that appearance, I walked up to him and I said, Mr. Morris, I want to ask you a question. It don't amount to anything today, but back when that scoring deal happened in Atlanta with that ARCA race, could we have won that race, or are you sure? He said, no, I'm sure that we missed him a lap. And come talking to Gene Roberts about it, what had happened was a float bowl. they started sputtering before the tank went dry on fuel. So they would have to stop early, take fuel. They'd go down a lap, Woodall pit, they'd get their lap back. And they missed him a lap somewhere along the way. Now, if you talk to DeWitt Pascal, he was the crew chief that day at Red Farmers. He was a lap down. But anyway, that race, Jeremy Mayfield was young, working in Earl Sadler's shop, and he was there working on the crew. And I like Jeremy. He impressed me the way he would run out at the Nashville Fairground.
Yeah.
The fall race in '92, Earl wanted to run that ARCA race again. I said, Mr. Earl, won't you let Jeremy run the car? I didn't need to. And they was getting a little older, and we was racing him in some go-karts and things like that. So Mr. Earl put Jeremy Mayfield, and me and Jeremy became good buddies. And, then the next year they went cup racing with Earl Sadler and then Cale Yarborough. I remember the day Jeremy called me and said, hey, Ken, I got a call from Cale Yarborough. I said, take it. Take it. Don't ask for it. Just take it.
Yeah.
And that was really how he got involved in the sport.
2003, you sold an 1966 Corvette to help David with his racing. And 2009, you got it back. How did that happen?
Yeah, I sold several collector cars, and I sold them because I wanted to. I knew in my mind, I knew what it'd take to get David there. Benny Parsons told David one day, he said, David, I don't think your daddy can tell you everything to do, but he can tell you a lot of things not to do if you're going to make it in this sport. You need to listen to your daddy. Well, I wanted David to have a fair chance. And, this week, David called me. It was Friday. He called me, and he said, Daddy, there's a guy from Louisiana fixing to call you. He's run me down on social media, and he's got the 69 Z28 that you sold back, in the early 2000. And that was one of them. And that guy called me this week. Wants me to verify this and verify that. It's a DZ Z28, red, factory paint on it, never been restored, original. And I sold those cars, Novas, and I sold that Corvette. One of the last cars. I held on to it as long as I could. But I sold it to help David. And the guy that bought it was from Charlotte, North Carolina, a friend of mine named Mark Whitaker. And about 4 years after he bought it, in 2001 maybe, he called me. He said, Ken, I'm going to get me a Viper. I need to sell this Corvette. I said, Mark, I don't even need to come look at it. I'm still trying to get David taken care of. I don't need to come look at it. So he sold it to a collector in Pennsylvania. Guy's got a collection of 60 to 69 Corvettes. So after David gets signed with Ford and Mr. Roush, he goes to Dover, and he finds out, he doesn't tell me, but he finds out from Whitaker, the guy that bought the car, and he drives over to look at it. And it's sitting in this guy's museum, and he tells the guy the story behind it. I worked on that car for 12 years restoring it. I was a member of the NCRS Corvette Club, would go to all the shows. I put it back, all original, like it should have been done. And 12 years I worked on it. And the guy said, well, David, it really ain't for sale. I just don't want to get rid of my 66. So David comes home, he gets my wife, gets his mother to pull some old pictures out. When he was 6, we was sandblasting the chassis. When he was 7, we was building the engine. When he was 8, we was putting the engine in it. We was putting the body back on it when he was 9, and all these years are going by. We up at Knoxville, Tennessee at the Corvette Expo, down in Florida, out in Dallas, Texas, getting parts and pieces, right stamps on bolts and the right numbers on alternators and all this stuff. So he carries them pictures back up there, and he shows them to that guy at the fall race at Dover. And that guy said, David, you know what? this car really belongs to you. You should have this car. But I'm going to have what it's worth. If I sell it, I'll have to replace it, and I'm going to have to get what it's worth. Well, what he didn't know was that David had just signed a Ford and Roush contract, and he could afford to pay him what it was worth. So he bought it. And my nephew got in it, drove it back over to the Dover track, and Jimmy Means put it on his hauler and hauled it back to Charlotte. And then my wife, I come in from U.S. Legends that Monday. She said, "Oh, David wants you to run over to the shop for a minute. I think I'll ride with you. I should have known something was up." And I'll open the door, and there it sits.
Wow.
It was gone for 4 years or so, and 4 or 5 years. But during those 4 or 5 years, I couldn't buy nothing. I was trying to sell stuff to keep David, to keep it going. And thanks to Barry Owen and Robert Yates and people like that, a lot of it kept going because of them. So, but it all worked out. The Corvette's back home. Me and my wife just took a 2-week trip down Route 66 in that Corvette.
Oh, man.
1,500 miles on Route 66. It was our 50th wedding anniversary.
Yeah.
We drove out to my nephew, the one that drove the Corvette for David that day back to Dover. He lives in St. Louis. We drove out there. He kept Adam while me and Beverly, Davis trailered the Corvette to St. Louis, had one of his guys to take it. We spent 9 days on Route 66, 1,500 miles. An amazing trip for us in that Corvette. The car had probably been driven 300 miles in the last 20 years, and we drove it 1,500 miles, 9 days. It's got bi-sply tires on it that I mounted on the wheels in 1990. And I was afraid of those tires maybe giving trouble. We didn't have a minute's problem with nothing. I didn't even check the air pressure in the tires. David had kind of looked it over before he sent it out.
Yeah.
Immaculate.
Wow. So David has an older brother, Adam. How big of a David Ragan fan is Adam?
Adam's got a fan club membership framed in his trophy case right now that says Adam Ragan, member number 1, fan number 1.
I like
Now,
that.
he's got a Richard Petty hat, Richard Petty sunglasses. He got some special pieces that Marcus Smith gave him, Tiger Tom Pistone, Robert Yates. But I don't think he'd trade that number 1 fan club membership of his brothers from back in the day for anything. Adam, he was your number 1 man, isn't he? Adam, it meant a lot to Adam to have a brother, because when they were 2 and 3 years old, they could pretty much do the same things and all. Well, by the time David gets 4, he gets on a bicycle and he learns to ride it in a day or 2, and that gives Adam encouragement, to ride his bicycle. And the next thing you know, he's riding his. And David gets him a basketball and he's dribbling and shooting hoops, and Adam wants to do the same thing. So, it was a blessing to have David, growing up with Adam. And then I tell you, the way it worked out, when David was 10 years old, turning 10, Adam was 11, and Mr. Wheeler came to me and talked to me about doing that program at Atlanta Motor Speedway. So my wife was looking into different school programs for Adam, special need kids school program, special ed. And Henry County had one of the better programs in the state of Georgia. Well, where's Atlanta Motor Speedway? Right in the middle of Henry County. So when we moved to Henry County for David to go racing, it worked out as good for Adam as it did for David.
Yeah, great.
So 6:30 every Tuesday, every Thursday morning, 6:30 in the morning, I drop Adam off at the gym like clockwork. He's in the gym because he knows his brother goes to the gym. And he had a doctor's appointment the other day, takes no medicine, doing good, but they did some blood work on him and Told him he'd lost 16 pounds. Weighs 158.
No, not 138. 136.
156.
There you
157. And so Adam's doing good. Works at Chick-fil-A back in Perry.
10 years I work.
Yeah, he's been there 10 years.
go. Wow.
And when we sold the Ford dealership, when my brother passed away, Marvin, I didn't want to keep the dealership just on my own. So we sold the Ford dealership, and Adam went to work at Chick-fil-A.
Huh.
He's been there for 9, going on 10 years.
How about that?
Can you get me a good deal on some nuggets?
He can. You come through Perry, Georgia, on I-75, exit 136. You stop in and call on Adam at the Chick-fil-A.
Write that down. 2011, David Ragan scored his first Cup win in the 400 at Daytona. Were you there?
Oh, yeah, I was there. Sitting on the pit box with Jack Rouse.
How about that?
Yep. And first guy I went through when it was over was Matt Kenseth. I said, Matt, thank you. Because, you know, that was back in the day where 2 were faster than 1. They get hooked up and push. And Matt pushed him. You know, of course, David had a fast car back in those days. You know, he was fast. You backed up a few months to the Daytona 500. You go to Talladega that year. That car was a rocket. It was fast. He had some good finishes. Out here at the Coke 600, run second to Harvick. But yeah, I was there, and what a relief that was for him to finally get one for Jack.
What did that mean to you?
Yeah.
Well, it meant a lot because, you know, David had come so close a number of times, and especially that year in the Daytona 500 when he and the Wood Brothers car had hooked up right there, and he led lap 200, but the caution was out, and they restarted, and he shifted over. He was a leader, picked the outside, and he shifted down to the inside lane before he crossed start-finish line. And we thought I thought the rule was that you couldn't improve your position. Well, it was kind of at that time an unwritten rule. You can't change lanes. But he was P1, and he stayed P1, but he had to come back down pit road. Could have cost him the Daytona 500, but, you know, he'd come so close so many times, and it was a relief for him to get that win. You know, I thought he had one at Michigan. Coming to the white, the caution comes out. He's first. Come around, didn't pit. Everybody from second on back pitted. Every car, he's the only car on the track. Oh boy, what a sitting duck he is. And they throw the green, white checkered, and Carl Edwards and Kyle Busch passed him, but he finished third.
Yeah.
Well, the Brickyard come mighty close. We mentioned the Coke 600. Just Richmond, so close, third, you know, just knocking them down and couldn't get a caution. So that was a relief, even though, you know, he had won Talladega in a Xfinity car and Bristol. But to win a cup race, and especially at Daytona, and even the next one, a year or two later when he won Talladega for Bob Jenkins, another great guy, deserved a win or two. You know, that was a special win, the first one for Bob. But I'm certainly glad he's got a few checkered flags for Ford, and Ford's been good to him, Mr. Etzel, right on down through the Ford ranks. Mr. Roush and Yates, and
Yeah.